Barb, we've talked a lot about the different types of assessment. There's a big one that I want us to talk about because I think it is a great segue into the what now aspect of things. We've gotten everybody over the hump. Could you hold that card up one more time? It's don't be afraid to measure. That one. Don't be afraid to measure. We've talked about this.
Don't be afraid to measure.
Yeah. And now we've measured.
Yeah.
Right. And there's one more measurement we got to talk about, which is measuring culture and engagement, employee engagement. How do we do that?
We were hired years ago by a consortium of business schools, AACSB, that accredits business schools, and also another association that does executive education, to actually study what chief learning officers wanted leaders to be able to do in the future.
Interesting.
And we realized that some feedback was better than others. What we were really interested in were organizations that had highly mature talent management strategies. So we had to build a talent management maturity model that we used for this period of research. And we categorized the chief learning officers that we talked to as emerging, talent, leadership maturity.
Okay.
And then kind of moderate, and then highly mature.
Got it.
And then the highly mature folks that we interviewed were the ones that we were really interested in.
Yeah.
And it also really kind of informed our work, because when we work with a company, we look at the organization holistically.
Yeah.
We look at their values, we look at their culture. It's not unusual for us to custom build a 360 for them, or an employee engagement survey. We may also customize and create something for their top management team. It's also not unusual for us to be tapped to get really good feedback for their CEO. And there's a joke, I tell this all the time. There are two things that a CEO doesn't get. That's a bad lunch and the truth. And so that's something that we work on. But we really like to look at the organization holistically.
Yeah.
And
because there's very impactful needs here that the CEO is looking for,
that
they're accountable to.
Right. There's that CEO mandate that we talked about earlier. And so we want to make sure that we know what those are and we know what's important in their markets. And then we want to see where the organization sits, in their competitive climate or with the communities that they're serving. But from the organizational vantage point, there are a lot of things that we can do to work with all the staff. But the second thing that we love to do is we love to work with teams. And we love to accelerate teams that are in trouble, teams that aren't performing, or teams that are great, but you need to scale the company and get them to the next stage. And so it's not unusual for us to work with the CEO, the executive leadership team, and then work with teams across the organization that are strategic. And then if we are evaluating them in a consistent way, either with their own proprietary assessment that we can help build, or with one that we have, then we have really good metrics. So we have their financial metrics, we have their employee engagement metrics, but we also have their 360 or 720 metrics. And then from there, every leader needs something different. They've all had different experiences. They've all had different development moments. And so there is magic to working with individuals one-on-one. And so that's when executive coaching comes in. It's really unusual for us when we're working with an organization not to architect that all together. But sometimes we do. And usually, we're working with executives that are strategic or working on something important.
And specific.
For the organization,
And are we also thinking about this from a board level?
Yeah, governance is a lot of fun. I'm heading to teach in a governance fellowship next week. Boards have been, for a long time, there was Rogers rules and very kind of strict ways of operating so that they were democratic. But over time, they've kind of evolved into the Wild West. And when you look at board dynamics, there are a couple of camps. There is the camp where the CEO rules the roost and the board just kind of amiable and is amiable and will go along with that CEO.
Sure.
So they really follow the lead of the CEO. Now, there are some boards where they follow the lead of the chairman, and they may be very critical of the CEO or the executive leadership team. So understanding that boards are looking at the overarching organization,
Right.
measuring the CEO and the executive leadership team with a clear mandate to show that performance is trending year over year is important.
Yes.
And the other thing that we found that boards, they may spend time giving the CEO feedback, but because at least half of their operating expense is talent, they spend very little time trying to improve the talent and the employee experience in the organization. So making sure they're looking after customer experience, employee experience, financial performance, mitigating risk, and they're in the role of guiding. And just like a top management team, if they aren't all participating and bringing their individual best to the table, then they're not functioning as a board. I have seen just dozens of CEOs say that they spend a portion of their time managing their board. Originally, boards were created by JP Morgan to be advisors to bring in expertise that JP Morgan didn't have. And he really used it as a collection of trusted advisors. With SOX and other regulatory and compliance issues, we've kind of switched the pendulum to the other side. And so bringing it back so that not only are you looking after regulatory and compliance issues, and you're making sure that a company like WorldCom years ago doesn't get itself into trouble, you also have to use a lot of variety of thinking, backgrounds, ages, demographics. There's a great argument that people don't stay on a board too long, but that you're bringing in at the right rhythm new board members for new perspectives, but you're not bringing them in too fast so that you lose that institutional knowledge. Anyway, it's one of the fun things that we also do.
So what happens then? I have my assessment. I've engaged in coaching. It's a program where I've either put myself or others on the senior leadership team, executive team, into a coaching framework. What am I looking for at this point? What can I bank on? What can I plan on?
I often say it's easy to help a person change. It is much harder to convince their ecosystem that they've changed.
Yes.
And so what we look for at the middle of an engagement when we're working with someone or the end of the engagement, that other stakeholders, either around that individual or team, are seeing things that they set as goals trending up.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, I don't think we're doing our jobs. So it goes back to don't be afraid to measure. Years ago, we were working with Cisco Systems, and they made us create a results-based guarantee.
Oh, wow.
And they gave us a -4 to +4 scale. And John Chambers asked us to work with his top 260 high potentials around the world.
Okay.
And they set goals, and then their organization measured us in the middle and the end.
Wow.
And if the person were neutral or went backwards, we didn't get paid. So we had a results-based guarantee that the person would make positive changes to the right of the scale.
Wow.
And I remember my socks melting because we had a handful of leaders that were kind of at neutral. Now, they were really in bad shape when we started. And it was, something like $250,000 or $350,000 that was at stake. But I didn't want to go back and tell our CEO that we weren't going to get paid for those engagements.
Right.
So the client flew in, some of the senior leaders from Cisco, and we sat down and we said, okay, these are the results. And we've got these handful, something like 6 leaders or whatever, that were neutral. And we said, we know we have our results-based guarantee. How do you want to proceed? And they said, oh my gosh, They were in such bad shape when we started. The fact that you got them to neutral, don't worry, we're paying you for everything.
Yeah.
So that was an important lesson in my career. I'm like, okay. And I'm one of those people like you. I'm tough on myself.
Yeah.
It taught me not to be afraid to measure.
Yeah.
Because you never know if you're making an impact. I did a session earlier today on leaving your legacy.
Yeah.
If you don't have benchmarks, if you don't have metrics, you don't know.
Yeah.